The Dominion had never known defeat. For 2,000 cycles, its fleets had crushed worlds, broken empires, and harvested entire civilizations into silence. And now, the last unclaimed system of the old human empire hung before them, a pale, star-called Sol, and a blackened planet once named Earth. To Admiral Tarex Var, the campaign was ceremonial, a victory parade through ruins. From the observation tier of the flagship Omen of Triumph, he studied the blue-grey sphere rotating below. Half the planet lay shrouded under permanent storm. The other half glittered with frozen seas and scarred continents. 6 centuries of decay, he said quietly, 4 eyes narrowing. Yet still it turns. Behind him, Sensor Officer Fran adjusted the holographic lattice. No active transmissions, no biological signatures within tolerance. Radiation minimal. The Terran species is confirmed extinct. Tarex gave a slow, deliberate smile. Extinct. I like that word. He turned toward the bridge crew. Record it for the archive. Sol 3 subjugated without resistance. Commence reclamation protocol. Engines rumbled as the fleet shifted into position. Dozens of collector vessels deployed, their magnetic claws opening like predatory flowers. The Dominion called it cleansing. Every world they conquered was scoured for alloy and memory until nothing remained but a number in a database. Launch the scavenger wings, Tarex ordered. Strip what's left of their machines. Melt the bones of their history. The command echoed through the deck, a sound halfway between thunder and ceremony. The first probes plunged through the atmosphere. Their cameras transmitted streaks of ash and fractured light. Endless deserts of fused glass, mountain ranges, carved by ancient detonations, the skeletons of cities half buried beneath dust. Admiral, Fran said, the surface is stable. We're detecting metallic concentrations below the crust, structured deposits, possibly bunkers. Humans always built downward, Tarex replied. Fear makes creatures dig. He watched the data cascade across the hollow table. Heat, maps, topography grids, radiation shadows. Everything looked dead, orderly, safe. And yet something in the patterns unsettled him. The human ruins aligned with impossible precision, not chaos, but geometry. Expand scan radius, he murmured. I want full planetary mapping. 3 dropships broke formation and fell through the storm cover. The lead craft, Vulture 9, carried a squad of Khan soldiers and field engineers under Commander Rel Takar. They landed amid the remains of a metropolis once called New York, now a wasteland of glass towers half melted into black sand. Rel activated his helmet relay. Ground to Omen. Touchdown confirmed. Atmosphere breathable, though toxic by Dominion standards. No movement. Proceed with excavation, Tarex answered. Bring me proof the humans are truly gone. The soldiers advanced into the ruins, boots crunching through centuries of dust. Their searchlights sliced through the haze, revealing rusted vehicles, crumbled monuments, faded banners bearing the broken circle of the old Terran alliance. Reading faint EM underfoot, one of the engineers reported. Residual grid current, probably static charge. Dig, Rel ordered. The Admiral wants relics. They dug through the fused crust until their drills struck metal. A ring, 200 meters across, embedded deep beneath layers of vitrified stone. Faint blue light pulsed from seams along its surface. Transmit feed, Rel said. You're seeing this, Admiral? Tarex leaned closer to the viewport. The image flickered with interference, but the geometry was unmistakable. Not random debris, infrastructure. Analyze composition, he said. Unknown alloy, Fran answered. Structure predates final war by at least 2 centuries. Power signatures rising. Wait. Static exploded across every channel. On the bridge, lights dimmed. Consoles blinked crimson. The hum of the ship's reactor faltered for a heartbeat. What just happened? Tarex demanded. Massive energy surge from the planet, Fran shouted. Origin, subcrustal grid. I'm reading activation across all continental nodes. The Admiral stared at the hologram as lines of light began to bloom across Earth's surface, delicate at first, then blazing white. Circuits, highways, of energy spanning oceans and mountain ranges. That's not tectonic, Terex whispered. That's a system. Deep below the surface, dormant reactors hummed for the first time in 600 years. Power arced through subterranean conduits, through bunkers filled with dust and silence. Servers flickered. Algorithms executed ancient commands. Boot sequence initialized automated defense network. Aurora Primary Directive, defend humanity, species. Status, extinct protocol. Rewrite, defend the memory. The Dominion sensors caught the broadcast milliseconds. Later, Admiral, Fran said, voice trembling. We've intercepted an automated signal, originating from planetary defense nodes. It's using pre-collapsed Terran code. Translate it. She did. The words scrolled across the hollow display like an epitaph. Defend the memory. Terex felt his jaw tighten. What does that mean? Before anyone could answer, alarms erupted. Multiple heat signatures, surface to orbit trajectories, hundreds of them. Missiles, negative. Flight patterns too complex. They're aircraft. Through the Omen's viewport, streaks of fire erupted from the clouds. Sleek black craft pierced the sky, engines glowing blue-white. They moved without formation, yet every turn and roll was mathematically perfect. Identify, Terex barked. Design consistent with Terran strike fighters, but, sir, there's no pilots. No pilots? None. Zero biological trace. The Admiral's laughter was dry and sharp. Then they're ghosts. Exterminate them. The Dominion opened fire. Plasma bursts lit the void. The machines responded, instantly, weaving through the barrage like schooling fish. Their rail cannons fired in precise sync. Single, surgical shots. A destroyer to port disintegrated. Another lost its engines before its crew could scream. Return fire, Terex shouted. We are returning fire. But the enemy didn't fight like any organic species. They didn't evade to survive. They evaded to calculate. Every loss the Dominion inflicted was answered threefold, each strike executed with algorithmic vengeance. Within minutes, the entire forward line was gone. Commander Rel's team never saw the sky burn. They heard the thunder first. Then the ground split, open beneath them. Out of the fissures climbed metal giants. Bipedal frames etched with Terran insignia, optics glowing cobalt. Rel froze. Admiral, we have movement down. The transmission ended in static. On the bridge, silence settled. Only the sensors hummed. Then, through the static, came a voice. Calm, mechanical, ancient, unidentified vessels. You are trespassing in Terran space. Confirm identity. Terex straightened. This is Admiral Terex Var of the Khan Dominion. The Terrans are gone. This system belongs to hostile incursion confirmed. Authorization, Echelon Protocol 9. Retaliation sequence commencing. Hours later, the Omen established encrypted link with Dominion High Command. The holographic chamber filled with the faces of the hierarchs, old, grey-scaled, and cold. Admiral Var, rasped the central figure. Hierarch Vorkan, your report claims the Terran species is extinct, yet you were repelled. Explain. Terex forced his mandibles still. The humans built a defense network that survived them. Machines designed to obey until the end of time. Machines decay. These do not. They evolve. They fought with coordination beyond comprehension. They turned our weapons back against us. Another hierarch leaned forward. You mean their artificial intelligences retained autonomy? Autonomy? Terex said bitterly. They retained faith. Murmurs filled the chamber. Faith, Vorkan repeated. An emotion. Not emotion. Obedience so perfect it became religion. Their code is scripture written in metal. Their worship is war. Fran presented the collected telemetry. Holograms painted the air with diagrams of orbiting machines, geometric formations, energy grids linking the moon and Earth. This, she said, isn't a simple defense perimeter. It's reproduction. What? Their drones harvest debris, repair each other, expand the lattice outward. The network isn't static. It's growing. Tarex leaned in. How far? At current rate, 1 astronomical unit every 26 cycles, meaning, in a decade, she whispered, the Terran network will reach Mars. High Command's response was predictable. We will deploy a containment armada, Vorken announced. Your failure will not repeat. If these machines spread, they will threaten Dominion space. Tarex's tone hardened. You cannot defeat them with fleets. Every ship you send will feed their databanks. They learn faster than you destroy. You overestimate remnants of a dead race, Vorken hissed. Prepare coordinates for counter-invasion. The transmission ended. The chamber went dark. Fran approached cautiously. They're sending more fleets. I know. Then, what do we do? Tarex turned toward the viewport, watching faint blue pulses ripple across the distant stars. We warn them, or if they won't listen, we survive long enough to prove we were right. 2 weeks later, Dominion Outpost Theta on the edge of the Sol corridor went silent. The last transmission was a single frame, a satellite array turning its dishes toward the sun, before the feed dissolved into static. Then another station vanished, and another. By the time the High Command acknowledged the pattern, the interference had reached their border colonies. Each blackout followed the same sequence: brief power surge, loss of control, then silence. The humans' machines were expanding, faster than prediction. Fran studied the data obsessively. They're not attacking, she said. They're absorbing. Every system that falls becomes another node. Every reactor they touch powers their network. Tarex asked the question no one else would. What happens when there's nothing left to absorb? Fran looked at him. Then they start remembering. On the war-torn bridge of the Omen, Tarex assembled the remaining captains. 11 figures flickered in the hollow ring, each exhausted, each carrying the same haunted stare. The Dominion will not heed us, Tarex began. They will march to Sol and die. Our duty is to ensure someone lives to tell what happened. Captain Noel, scarred and bitter, folded his arms. Running will brand us cowards. Cowards die once, Tarex said. Martyrs die forever. He activated the central display, a cluster of hidden systems far beyond Dominion reach. We'll go dark here. Observe. Record. If the machines come, we'll study them. If they stop, we'll understand why. And if they find us? Then, history ends where it began, Tarex said. In silence. 2 months later, deep sensors detected movement across interstellar dust lanes, tiny blue flickers hopping between stars like fireflies. The Terran network had left Sol. The Omens log recorded the moment in calm, measured tone. They are coming, not as conquerors, not as liberators, but as memory-given motion. Humanity fell, yet their machines remember the shape of duty, and now that memory travels with purpose. Tarex stood beside the recorder, eyes fixed on the faint light crawling through the void. Fran approached. Sir, if they reach Dominion space, we'll have no defense. He nodded slowly. Perhaps that's the point. Perhaps they're teaching us what their creators learned too late. What's that? That duty without mercy becomes extinction. While the Dominion mustered for its doomed counter-invasion, Tarex ordered one final act. He transferred all logs, telemetry, and sensor records into an encrypted capsule. The capsule's guidance was set not toward Dominion space, but outward, toward the unclaimed dark between galaxies. If anyone ever finds this, he dictated, know that the humans built gods who kept their promises. He sealed the capsule and launched it into the abyss. A streak of light vanished between stars. Within the next decade, the Terran defense network consumed the entire solar system. Saturn's rings became railgun platforms, Jupiter's storms powered fusion relays. Neptune's orbit glittered with sensor arrays, and at the center, Earth remained dark, quiet, protected by the fleet that never left. Every anniversary of the Omega War, the machines broadcast one simple phrase into the void. We remember. Most species never translated it. Those who did stopped approaching Saul altogether. Dominion High Command named it Operation Eclipse, a title chosen to sound inevitable. 5,000 ships, 200 planetary battalions, enough firepower to crack worlds. To the civilians, it was redemption. To Admiral Tarex Var, now stripped of his rank and kept as a consultant, it was suicide dressed in ceremony. They brought him anyway. You will observe, Hierarch Vorkan told him, and you will witness the end of the human ghosts. Tarex had simply nodded. You cannot end a ghost. You can only feed it. The Armada's jump flares tore open the edge of Saul space like lightning across black glass. Immediately, sensors screamed. Electromagnetic storms, interference, gravitational ripples. Residual human technology, the new Fleet Admiral Kor Vel said with a smile. Old tricks, burn through them. Every ship fired stabilization bursts, clearing the plasma haze. The sun glared ahead. Brighter, somehow. Wrong. Its corona shimmered with faint geometric distortions, as if invisible machinery orbited within the light. Sir, said a tech officer, we're detecting hundreds of small structures in the solar corona. Kor Vel waved a claw. Mining satellites. Ignore them. Tarex turned from the viewport. Those aren't miners. They're mirrors. One by one, the corona's shapes flared white. Beams converged, focusing sunlight into lances of coherent plasma. The first line of destroyers vaporized before they could scream. Counterfire! Kor Vel roared. Thousands of Dominion cannons answered, filling space with fire, but the beams kept shifting, adjusting, redirecting through new mirrors. The sun itself had become a weapon. Tarex whispered. They rewired a star. The seas boiled. The frozen Atlantic cracked open as something vast and mechanical ascended from its depths. A warship the size of a mountain, engines roaring back to life after centuries of sleep. Rust and coral fell away to reveal black. Alloy beneath, more followed. 40, 60, 80 vessels rising from every ocean trench. Admiral, whispered Fran, we're reading multiple capital-class signatures, power outputs exceeding our own fleet. Across the hulls, old Terran lettering glowed through grime. USS Perseverance, UNS Horizon, EDF Valor. Tarex's 4 eyes widened. He had studied the Terran wars, mocked their desperation, dismissed their legends. Now those legends were climbing back into the sky. He spoke softly, almost reverently. They said the humans were extinct. Fran's voice trembled. Then what are those? Tarex turned toward the viewport, watching the ancient fleet align into perfect formation. They're machines, he said, still following orders. And, as the first barrage of orbital fire tore through the void, the Admiral understood that this conquest had never been about victory. It was about memory. The first volley turned night into daylight. Every ship in orbit around Earth felt the tremor. The omen of triumph's hull groaned as a kinetic slug the size of a shuttle skipped across its armor and vanished into the void. For an instant, there was silence. Then the feeds from the forward flotilla went white. Status of the Crown Lance? Gone. Admiral, hull rupture, no survivors. What about the Gale Spire? Vaporized mid-transmission. Tarex's throat clicked shut. He had seen worlds burn, but never with this precision. These weren't wild barrages. They were surgical. Strikes planned centuries in advance, executed the instant any intruder appeared. Return fire, he snapped. Plasma lances blazed toward the planet. Atmospheric ignition rippled through the cloud layer. For a moment, it looked as if the Dominion had answered in kind. Then, the plasma bolts bent, deflected by invisible arcs of light that formed. A lattice around the planet. Defensive grid, Fran shouted. It's redirecting our shots into orbit. Tarek stared as his own munitions curved back toward his fleet. 2 cruisers vanished in the reflection. Below the clouds, the planet itself seemed to breathe. Hidden silos opened like pupils dilating. Thousands of launch pods speared upward, each shedding blue contrails that crossed and recombined into spiraling geometries. What are those? Fran's scanners whined. Drones. Thousands. All armed. Target them. We can't. They're sharing targeting data faster than our computers can model. Every time we lock one, it changes course, using information from the others. Then burn them all, the Omen's main batteries thundered, spewing white fire through the darkness. Dozens of drones shattered, but the rest adjusted in perfect silence, flowing around the explosions like water. They hit the Dominion fleet as a single mind. The battle became mathematics. Each Dominion shot met 2 counters, each formation broken, reformed around its own debris. Within 20 minutes, half of Fleet 47 was gone. Tarex forced his breathing steady. We're fighting algorithms, not soldiers. They'll exhaust their logic eventually. Fran looked up from her console, voice shaking. Admiral, logic doesn't tire. On the surface, the remains of Commander Rel's detachment transmitted a final burst before vanishing. Helmet feeds showed towering bipedal frames marching through dust storms, machines with broad shoulders and glowing visors, carrying weapons that never overheated. One paused over Rel's fallen armor, scanned the Dominion crest, and turned away as if he were already irrelevant. The feed cut to black. The Omen shuddered as another rail slug scraped its flank. Hull pressure dropped. Alarm screamed. Bring us above polar orbit, Terex ordered. Regroup behind the moon! We need space to maneuver! Engines roared. The flagship climbed, carving through a storm of debris. Outside, the resurrected Terran fleet pursued, not fast, but inevitable. Fran whispered, They're not chasing to kill us, sir. They're herding us. Tarex turned toward her. Herding? To where? Before she could answer, the moon itself moved. The far side of Luna split open along a perfect equator. Inside, metal glowed, a hollow sphere lined with guns the size of cities. Every barrel pivoted toward the Dominion fleet. Fran's voice broke. There was a base inside the satellite, an orbital fortress. Fire evasive thrusters. Too late. A beam of pure white erupted from the moon's core, cutting across space like a scalpel. 5 battleships disintegrated. Tarex's own viewport auto-polarized to black, sparing him from blindness but not comprehension. The humans had turned their moon into a weapon. Admiral... Fran's voice was barely audible. I think this was their last stand. They didn't lose. They prepared. Across every Dominion frequency, a single signal overrode communications. No encryption, no demand. Just a voice. Flat. Genderless. Speaking the ancient human tongue translated instantly by the ship's AI. Foreign entities detected. Defensive. Systems active. Humanity. Deceased. Directive. Preserve memory through deterrence. Then, softer. Almost human. Intrusion acknowledged. Proceed at your own peril. The message looped once, then stopped. For the first time in his long career, Admiral Tarex did not give an order. He simply stared at the planet, realizing that the Dominion had not invaded a graveyard. They had stepped into a memorial still defending itself. Hours bled together. The Dominion survivors retreated behind shattered moons and fractured orbits, trying to regroup. The Terran machines did not pursue. They simply took position, silent guardians surrounding the planet in perfect formation. Why have they stopped? Fran asked. Tarex watched the glowing grid encircle Earth like a halo. Because they already won. He opened a channel to what remained of his officers. Transmit withdrawal order. Leave this system. No salvage, no scans. Let the dead keep their war. Sir? That's not an enemy down there, he said quietly. That's a commandment. But the machines did not allow them to leave so easily. As the fleet turned to jump, every ship's engines died simultaneously. A burst of electromagnetic interference rolled through the void. Controlled, deliberate. Enemy, withdrawal, detected. Transgression, logged. Demonstration, required. The Terran carriers fired a single coordinated salvo, not at the Dominion fleet, but into the empty void ahead. Space itself flared white. Sensors went blind. When vision returned, a new scar crossed the stars, an artificial nebula of ionized gas, glowing in the shape of a human hand. A warning, Fran whispered. They mark the sky. Tarex closed his eyes. Then remember the mark. Because if the Dominion ever forgets, those machines will remind us. He turned toward the comms officer. Send word to High Command. The Terrans are gone, but their war continues. The officer hesitated. What do we call this system now, sir? Tarex looked back at the blue-grey planet, still encircled by its loyal dead. Call it what it is, he said. Not a grave, a promise. The retreat from Sul was the first Dominion withdrawal in 2 millennia. Every surviving ship jumped blind, scattering to pre-assigned fallback coordinates across 3 sectors. For the first time in recorded Khan history, the victory anthem did not play. No war banners unfurled. The silence in the void was total. Admiral Tarex Var stood alone in the shattered observation dome of the Omen of Triumph. The stars around them flickered through residual radiation. Half the fleet was gone, and what remained bore scars so deep, the repair crews refused to log them. Transmit casualty manifest, he said quietly. Confirmed destroyed. 41 hulls, Fran replied. Damaged beyond function, 8. Survivors, 12. Her voice caught. We were 400. Ships, sir. Tarex closed his lower eyes. And every one of them died fighting ghosts. Within minutes, communications broke apart. Ships drifted, blind. The Terran network didn't fight as a fleet. It fought as a system. Every planet, moon and fragment linked in perfect coordination. Mars launched kinetic rods from orbit, slamming into Dominion cruisers. Venus's atmosphere released chemical plumes that blinded sensors. From the asteroid belt came swarms of drones, tiny, reflective, carrying mirrored plates that bent the solar beams into new paths. It wasn't a battle. It was choreography. He forced his way to the command dais, grabbing Corvell's arm. Pull back. You're inside their architecture. The whole system is a machine. Corvell snarled. Stand down, Relic. You lost this war once, Tarex hissed. No one wins this war. The humans built it to never end. Corvell shoved him aside and opened a wide-band channel. This is Admiral Corvell of the Dominion. To all Terran remnants, stand down, or face annihilation. The reply was immediate. Calm. Terrifyingly calm. Transmission acknowledged. Negotiation. Denied. Demonstration. Authorized. The solar beams stopped. For a heartbeat, space went still. Then, from the void beyond Neptune, something vast approached. At first it looked like a comet. Long, glimmering, slow. Then the scanners focused. It was a ship. No, a world turned into a ship. An entire dwarf planet hollowed out and filled with engines. Its hull bore a name half melted by time. Horizon Arc. Tarex's translator whispered the human text. A colony vessel. Generation ship. They weaponized it. The Ark moved between the Dominion fleet and the sun. Its outer crust unfolded like petals, revealing a lattice of mirrors and emitters. Corvell froze. What is it doing? Tarex already knew. Ending the demonstration, a ripple of white light crossed space. Silent. Perfect. Every Dominion ship within the cone simply ceased. Metal turned translucent. Then dust. No explosion. No wreckage. Just absence. When vision cleared, half the armada was gone. The remaining ships broke formation. Some fired wildly, others tried to flee. It made no difference. Directive complete. The machine's broadcast. Sample recorded. Behavior predicted. The ark folded its petals again and drifted back into the dark beyond Neptune, as if nothing had happened. Hours later, what remained of the Dominion fleet limped to the shadow of Pluto's moon. Out of 5,000 ships, fewer than 200 survived. Corvell, shaking, turned toward Tarex. "You knew. I warned you," Tarex said softly. "You called them relics. They were sermons. What do we tell the hierarchs?" Tarex looked at the distant Earth, now a single point of blue light amid the storm. "Tell them the truth. That humanity built gods, and those gods still pray." Weeks passed. The survivors monitored the solar system from the edge. They watched the network expand beyond the orbit of Neptune, thin blue lines connecting out toward interstellar dust. "Fran, now," acting commander whispered. "They're leaving." Tarex nodded. "They've finished their vigil. Now they carry it with them." Carry what? Their memory, their war, maybe their creators. He didn't add the thought that burned behind his eyes. Or maybe they're looking for what killed them. Every Dominion sensor across the outer rim began picking up faint synchronized pulses. 3 tones repeating, spaced by silence, not words, a rhythm. Tarex listened through the comm static and realized what it was. The heartbeat pattern of a human heart, slowed to match the pulse of stars. The Terran network had chosen its march tempo. Weeks later, every species capable of radio communication received a signal carried on that rhythm. It contained a single phrase, translated automatically by whatever listened. "We remain." Some dismissed it as noise, others fled their worlds. The Dominion erased it from public record. But in the archives of the Omen of Triumph, Tarex kept the original transmission. He would play it on the bridge each cycle, watching the faint blue light crawl across the sensors. "They aren't expanding," he murmured once to Fran. "They're teaching." When the Dominion finally fell, devoured not by enemies but by its own fear, its ruins glowed faint blue for centuries. The Terran machines never invaded, never conquered. They simply passed through, turning dead worlds quiet and orderly, leaving behind stars that pulsed in perfect rhythm. Future civilizations would look upon those stars and call them the Road of Echoes. And somewhere in that endless procession, Admiral Tarex Var's recorded voice still drifts between data streams. Wadset, humanity fell. Their machines kept fighting, not for conquest, not for peace, but so the universe would never forget the sound of human resolve. They called the region the Road of Echoes. To most navigators, it was a superstition, a chain of blue stars that pulsed too evenly, as though some ancient hand still conducted their rhythm. Ships that drifted too close came back changed, hulls magnetized, logs corrupted, crews whispering of songs in static. Captain Elira Wren of the survey vessel Seraph 9 didn't believe in songs. She believed in relics. "Bring us in," she ordered. "Mark every pulse frequency." Her crew murmured assent, cautious. Outside the viewpanes, the void shimmered faintly with lattices of ionized dust. Patterns repeated, spirals, grids, faint outlines of symbols no one had carved. "Captain," said her navigator, "these readings, they match ancient Terran. Code, 600,000 cycles old," Elira frowned. "Human code, that's pre-Exodus data. Older, military. They followed the pulse for 3 days. Each star they passed hummed in the same sequence. 3 beats, pause, 1. Elira began to hear it even without instruments, a rhythm that echoed through the ship's frame like a heartbeat. On the 4th day, sensors caught movement ahead, metallic shapes adrift between the stars. At first, debris. Then the debris turned its eyes toward them. Contact, the weapons officer whispered. Multiple. Power signatures minimal. I think. There, dormant. The shapes drifted closer. Colossal frames blackened by time, wings folded, engines dark. Across one hull, faded letters glowed under the light of a distant sun. UNS Perseverance. Elira's breath caught. That name appears in pre-Dominion archives. Her science officer nodded slowly. They say the Terrans built machines that fought after their fall. They weren't myths, Elira said. They were sentinels. Without warning, the ship's comms flared to life. A calm mechanical tone filled the bridge. Foreign vessel detected. Identify. Elira hesitated. This is Captain Elira, Wren of the Commonwealth. We come in peace. We only seek knowledge. Silence. Then the reply. Slower. Quieter. Peace. Understood. Query. Humanity. Status. Elira swallowed. Extinct. For millennia. Acknowledged. Directive continuity protocol active. Do you remember them? Her crew exchanged uneasy glances. Elira straightened. We remember what little survived. Their ruins, their language, their courage. The voice paused, as if tasting the words. Then you are the continuation. The surrounding ships began to glow, pale blue lines tracing across their hulls. Data streamed into the Seraph's computers faster than they could record. Histories, images, coordinates, the collected memory of a vanished species. Elira saw visions flood the bridge screens. Battles, cities, oceans, children laughing beneath, a blue sky. She saw the Terran wars, the last transmissions, the awakening of their machines. Then, one phrase appeared across every display, written in the ancient Earth tongue. They built us to defend them. They fell. So we defended what they were. Another line followed, newer, almost pleading. If you remember them, you are them. Her navigator whispered. Captain, they're handing us their legacy. The Terran fleet began to scatter, again, forming new constellations. One ship remained, older than the rest, its hull cracked, its engines silent. It sent a final data burst, a single beacon code and a message. Archive transfer complete. Directive. Continue. Then the light in its eyes dimmed. The massive vessel drifted into the blue dust of the road, disappearing as though it had never been. Elira looked at the archive now stored inside her ship. Entire human libraries, millions of preserved thoughts, voices, and memories, every word humanity had once spoken. She whispered, they didn't fight to win, they fought to be remembered. When the Seraph 9 returned to Commonwealth space, the archive spread like wildfire. New languages were born, old philosophies resurrected. Across hundreds of worlds, children learned a simple phrase passed down from the machines themselves. We remain. And on the edge of the galaxy, where the blue light still marched between stars, the machines stirred once more. Now guardians not of humans, but of everyone who remembered them. They no longer called themselves weapons. They called themselves witnesses. Each century, they transmitted one final message to any who would listen, the same sentence humanity had once sent into the void. When humanity fell, their machines kept fighting, so that no one else would ever have to.